May 19th, 1977. Highway 99, Northern California. A young couple pulled over to help a girl hitchhiking in the rain. 20 years old, blonde, soaking wet. She got in the back seat. They drove for 10 minutes. Then the man pulled a knife, put it to her throat, and said 4 words that would haunt her for 7 years. "You're coming with us." What happened next sounds impossible, but every word is true. This is the story of Colleen Stan, the girl who spent 23 hours a day locked in a wooden box under a bed for 7 years, and the twisted couple who kept her there while raising 2 children in the same house. By the time she escaped, she'd become so brainwashed she didn't even know she was allowed to leave. This is the most disturbing kidnapping case in American history, and it gets worse with every detail. Let's begin. Colleen Stan was 20 years old in 1977. She was hitchhiking from her home in Eugene, Oregon, to a friend's birthday party in Northern California. It was something people did back then, the 70s, pre-cell phones, pre-Uber. Hitchhiking was normal. She'd already turned down several rides that morning, solo men, bad vibes. But when a young couple in a blue Dodge van pulled over, she felt safe. Cameron Hooker, 23 years old, was driving. His wife Janice, 19, sat in the passenger seat. Their baby daughter was in a car seat in the back. A family. What could go wrong? Colleen climbed in. They made small talk for a few miles. Weather, travel plans, nothing unusual. Then Cameron suddenly pulled off onto a deserted side road. Colleen asked what was happening. Cameron turned around, pointed a knife at her face, and told her if she screamed or fought, he'd kill her right there. Janice didn't even flinch. She'd known this was the plan all along. Cameron forced Colleen to put her hands behind her back. He zip-tied them together. Then he put a wooden box over her head. A custom-made head box, lined with foam, completely soundproof. Colleen couldn't see, couldn't hear, could barely breathe. They drove for hours. When they finally stopped, Cameron dragged her out of the van and into a house, a normal suburban home in Red Bluff, California. He took her to the basement. And that's where Colleen Stan would spend the next 7 years of her life. Cameron Hooker had been planning this for years. Since he was a teenager, he'd fantasized about owning a slave, not metaphorically, literally. He'd built a soundproof room in his basement. He'd constructed a wooden box 2 feet wide, 3 feet long, barely tall enough to sit in. He'd collected chains, locks, restraints, torture devices. All before he even met Colleen. His wife Janice knew everything. She helped him. Because Cameron had convinced her this was normal. That God wanted them to do this. That owning a slave girl was part of their spiritual path. Janice was 19. Isolated and completely under his control. She believed him. On Colleen's first night in captivity, Cameron read her a document. He called it The Company. He told Colleen that he worked for a powerful underground organization that trafficked slaves, that they had operatives everywhere, that if she tried to escape, they would kill her entire family. None of it was true. But Colleen believed every word. Cameron hung her from the ceiling by her wrists, tortured her for hours, then forced her into the wooden box and locked it. The box sat under Cameron and Janice's bed. For 23 hours a day, Colleen was locked inside that wooden box, in complete darkness, in complete silence, barely able to move. She could hear footsteps above her, hear the baby crying, hear normal family life happening 3 feet above her head. But she couldn't scream, because she believed the company would kill her family. Once a day, Cameron would let her out. He'd allow her to use the bathroom, give her a few minutes to stretch. Sometimes he'd hang her from the ceiling and whip her. Sometimes he'd attach electrodes to her body and shock her. Then he'd put her back in the box. This went on for 3 years. 3 years in a box under a bed. During this time, Cameron and Janice had a second baby. They celebrated birthdays, had family over for dinner, went to church on Sundays, and every night they slept on a bed with a human being locked in a box underneath them. Nobody knew. In 1980, 3 years into Colleen's captivity, something changed. Cameron decided she was broken enough. He started letting her out more, gave her chores around the house, allowed her to help with the children. But he kept her convinced that the company was real, that her family would die if she left, that she belonged to him now. Janice Hooker started to resent Colleen, because Cameron was paying more attention to his slave than to his wife. So Cameron made Colleen sign a slavery contract. A slavery contract stating that she voluntarily agreed to be his property forever. Colleen signed it, because she still believed the company was watching. In 1981, Cameron did something that sounds impossible. He let Colleen call her family. She called her father and told him she was alive, that she'd joined a religious group, that she couldn't come home, but she was safe. Her father begged her to come back. Colleen said she couldn't, because Cameron was standing right there, listening to every word, reminding her with his eyes what would happen if she said the wrong thing. After that call, Cameron started letting Colleen work. He got her a job at a motel as a maid. He drove her to work every morning, picked her up every night. She earned minimum wage and gave it every penny to him. Co-workers noticed she was quiet, nervous, never socialized. But nobody asked questions. This was the early 80s. People minded their own business. At night, Colleen still went back into the box. In 1984, 7 years into Colleen's captivity, everything changed. Janice Hooker finally broke. She couldn't take it anymore. The guilt, the jealousy, the insanity of living this double life. One day while Cameron was at work, Janice went to Colleen and told her the truth. There is no company. There never was. Your family is safe. You can leave. Colleen didn't believe her at first. 7 years of psychological torture had rewired her brain completely. But Janice kept insisting. She told Colleen that she herself was leaving Cameron, that she was taking the kids, that Colleen should run too. August 9, 1984. Colleen Stan walked out of the house in Red Bluff and got on a bus. She went back to her family in Oregon. They hadn't seen her in 7 years. She told them everything. They immediately called the police. November 1984. Cameron Hooker was arrested at his workplace. Police searched his house and found the box under the bed, the restraints, the torture devices, the contract Colleen had signed. They found journals where Cameron had written in detail about his fantasies and plans to kidnap more women. Janice Hooker testified against her husband in exchange for immunity. The trial became a media sensation. Experts testified about something most people had never heard of: Stockholm Syndrome, learned helplessness, psychological captivity. How a person could be so broken that even when physically free, they remain mentally imprisoned. The jury heard recordings of Cameron describing his plans, saw photographs of the box, listened to Colleen's testimony about 7 years of daily torture. October 31, 1985. Cameron Hooker